Hi, I'm here today to talk to you about implementing KEPs, and I have a great example of Sidecar's KEP to talk about. And sorry for my voice, I lost it before conference. Like typically people do it after, but yeah, I tried different tactics this time around. And if you don't mind, I will make a photo of you all. Okay. Yeah, let's get into it. So before starting the KEP, like KEP process is generally quite easy and straightforward. We have some documentation. You need to plan ahead. You need to understand what the KEP is about, and then you need to make sure that API is approved, and then go to some implementation, and that's it. So I will go through all the stages with you, and I will sprinkle the talk with examples how it went with Sidecar without talking about Sidecar KEP in advance. I will talk about Sidecar KEP in the end. So I hope you have a general sense what Sidecar KEP is about. It's about like containers that you run that are not your main containers. And in the end, I will tell more about it. So before you start your KEP process, you need to understand that Kubernetes is big, and Kubernetes has various workloads running on various environments, and changes in these environments are hard. We found it like very first thing when we released alpha of Sidecar, we found it like right away. So some environments restart nodes on a bootstrap, and it's like intentional. And we didn't test the scenario, like Kubernetes doesn't have good tests on restart of node, and we didn't test it intentionally, and so we broke this scenario. That's why like every change you make, like we didn't even wanted to, like we didn't even think we touched this scenario, but like apparently we did. So it's another highlight that everything is interconnected in Kubernetes, and like there are ways people use Kubernetes you may not even imagine. And that's why changes are hard, and also this is why you never should expect that your KEP will be delivered fast. So even if you planned everything ahead, it's very well needed feature by everybody, you still take at least 2 releases to get to beta, and beta is typically something that you may want to enable by default. So if you ended up GA in your feature in a little bit over the year, you are on a very good track. And it's fast in open source terms. Way back, I was working in Microsoft. Everybody was asking like how soon the feature will be delivered, and my answer was like enterprise soon. Like soon in terms of like speeds that enterprise feature are developed. So Kubernetes is the same way. Like enterprise, like open source soon feature will be delivered. It means that we will deliver it with as fast as possible, and then this as fast as possible will be adopted as fast as any other open source product will be adopted. So don't expect a feature to be delivered fast, and set up expectation. And if you are working on that feature in the free time, like plan ahead, like say like you want to work on it for a long time. If you work for an employer, you need to set expectations up right. And then next thing that you need to do is to, if you have an idea, you want to implement something, you need to go and convince that this is needed idea. With Sidecar, it was a problem because many workloads in Kubernetes were long-running web services. So these long-running web services have sidecars all right. I mean, we had some problems here and there, but generally they worked. So nobody wanted to invest into sidecars to cover minority of scenarios. And it's recently when jobs and AI ML and all this new batch workloads started more popular, we realized like, no, now it's a time. Like now we cannot wait any longer. We need to implement sidecars natively. So when you start your KEP and you truly believe that your feature is absolutely needed, you need to check your assumptions and prove your assumptions to somebody else. You need to have certain people in mind, like maybe even specific people in mind who will be needed this feature. And if you bring these people to the KEP meeting or to SIG meeting, it will be very useful because this will reinforce the idea that feature is needed, and some specific questions will be asked. And then you also need to understand what exact problem you're solving. With sidecars, people were like, we need sidecars. So why we need sidecars? Because jobs are not terminating. So you need something that will terminate your job. So you need some keystone container. Okay, keystone container sounds good. So keystone is something important that will terminate the entire pod. It's another feature. It's not a sidecar feature. So if you implement keystone, will be enough. And then you think about it, and if you think about it, no, you also need to restart sidecars if they crashed. So you don't need a keystone container. You really need sidecar. So you need to understand what exact problem you need to solve, and you need to express this problem very precise. And then you also need to check for sidecars, we didn't have this problem, but for other KEPs, you also need to make sure that this is not something that needed for specific vendor or specific party. It's needed for entire community. So if something vendor specific, typically we have some ways to plug in functionality into Kubernetes, and maybe that's the best way for you to go. Anyway, let's go further. And then another thing that you need to do before you start your KEP is to find sponsors and convince some reviewers and approvers that they need to spend your time to review and approve your KEP soon. If you didn't find sponsors, there are so many requests for KEPs, there are so many people trying to work on something that we just physically don't have enough reviewers and approvers to spend time on everything. And it comes to common dissatisfaction. You come to meetings saying, I need this feature, and everybody, yes, feature is important. You didn't get, yes, I will review it. You'll get, yes, the feature is important. And you're thinking to yourself, feature is important. I wrote a KEP, like why nobody reviewing this KEP? And everybody agrees that feature is important, but there is no time to review the KEP. So don't get into this bad dissatisfaction loop of reviewers not reviewing a KEP because they don't have time, and you think that they don't believe that feature important. So it's not a contradictory statement. It's like you need to convince them both, like that's important and important now. And then once you have your sponsors, reviewers, and approvers, and this is the most complicated part, and it took a lot of time for Sidecar KEP to achieve. Like we didn't have problems with reviewers and approvers part. We did problem with commitment demonstrate commitment part. So for sidecars, we had reviewers and approvers to get Sidecar KEP moving, but unfortunately, the state of SIG-Node was quite bad in terms of testing. Plus, we didn't have many people, long-timers, trying to contribute this feature. And the problem and nobody wanted to, the problem was that without demonstrated commitment, it's hard to tell yes and expect that everything will be done properly. And demonstrating commitment takes a lot of time. And we went through entire loop of creating CI group to fix the tests. And we went through this entire loop of improving code quality around and adding more tests for other areas similar, like related to Sidecar. And it took time. And once we did that, it demonstrated commitment a lot. And I think that made a break into approving it and moving it forward reasonably fast. So I don't have many good advices to demonstrate commitment rather than come and work. So if you bring new KEP and you expect that like you out of no, whatever I say, like I may be exaggerating, and like please don't take anything personally. I know like condition changes and like employment changes, like personal situation changes. So when I'm saying out of nowhere, it's like you may have been on Kubernetes before and you come again and like you want this new shiny feature, you need to somehow tell that you are committed to work on that to the end, and you're not only patching here and there to make sure that your feature is delivered as fast as possible and like with some other people to maintain it going forward. So yeah, make sure that you demonstrated commitment, and if you promise somebody to deliver the feature, also tell this somebody like employer that to deliver the feature, you first need to invest a little bit of your time to get engaged and get known to the community, to the SIG you're working with. Okay, with that, you went through all the cycles. You get reviewers and approvers from a SIG advocating for you. Now you need to go through API review. And API review is a very important cycle. API review making sure that whatever you do aligned with overall Kubernetes strategy, and it is not bringing something that Kubernetes doesn't want to support long term, and it's not breaking some strategic directions. So for API reviews, you need to work really hard on use cases. So typically with sidecars, every time sidecars were brought, use cases sounds like, I have a proxy, I need to install proxy, and then I need this proxy to be terminated, and there are other use cases. And then like, what other use cases? Logging, something about logging. I heard that logging is important. And then somebody like, okay, I need to update certificate regularly, and this needs to be done by a sidecar because it needs to be, I don't know, started before you need containers. And there are other use cases. So if you put yourself in position that you are not allowed to use statement, and there are other use cases, and you need to really list all the use cases, you get yourself into a very interesting position. Then you realize that all the use cases are a little bit different. So service mesh needs to terminate really fast when main container completed, because it doesn't need to do any cleanup. Logging needs to run a little bit over main containers because they need to clear up buffers. Certificate download needs to run even before service mesh, because typically certificate that is being downloaded will be used by this service mesh. So there are so many use cases, and if you go into details of each of them, you realize that each use case brings a little bit of a color to feature you implement. So once you put yourself into this mindset of not dismissing use case and not assuming similarity, you will find color, and you will be more credible when you're talking to API reviewers. Then draw a bigger picture. So this is what we struggled a lot in Sidecar's KEP, because Sidecar changed the lifecycle of pod a little bit. And when you change the lifecycle of pod, people natively come with more scenarios beyond sidecars. So some sort of ordering, some sort of dependency between containers, some sort of like orchestration inside the orchestrator. So like, yeah, it's complicated. So if you, for every KEP that you deliver, and we have examples in other areas like resource management and like image collection, you need to make sure that you drew a bigger picture for everybody. So this, so reviewers know where you're going directionally and how your piece is going to the same direction. So if there are other requests similar to your request, how it will be plugged, if they will follow your path, we will just overcomplicate the product and make it unusable. We had so many proposals in Sidecar KEP, like how to implement it specifically from API perspective. And without drawing this bigger picture, we couldn't even pick. Like we've been like in decision paralysis. Like nobody knew what's the right way to go because nobody knew this bigger picture. And only after we went through the mental exercise of documenting all the possibility of long-term vision and like discarding some of them and approving others, we realized that this is a proper way to go. So this is a very important step. Sometimes some SIGs would have some roadmap, but I didn't see good roadmaps yet. I mean, not recently. So if you have a roadmap, it's much easier to plug yourself into this roadmap. If there is no roadmap, it's an exercise for KEP author, but you can definitely often find support from SIG. If you just go to SIG meeting and ask for some help, typically people offer help and offer suggestions how to approach that. Also, bigger picture, like unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, like there is very little few ideas on Kubernetes. Many ideas were already discussed. So when you draw in this bigger picture, sometimes there is a long past history of people trying to go one direction and already failed. So if you go to SIG meeting and ask about something, they will tell you stories, and it will help you educate the bigger picture and why not go certain ways. And then once you get into this mode of like, I'm drawing different variants of longer picture, and I'm trying to convince people to go one way or another, you need to make sure that you document these decisions. You put names on decisions, you list pros and cons, and why one decision was made over another decision. Without documenting, we found in Sidecar KEP that we come into the same conversation over and over and over again. If you don't have, pardon me, a way to point people to writing, you will go into the same conversation and you will waste a lot of your time. Another interesting aspect of API reviews is that you must think about misuse almost as hard as valid use cases. In Sidecar KEP, we had an example. We thought sidecars are very special, and if you have a type of sidecar containers, then this type of sidecar containers will have the specific option. For instance, it will not be a subject for restart back off. It will restart immediately, because this is typically what people want. And the first comment I heard from somebody I working with was like, oh, how can I make a sidecar be, a main container be dependent on sidecar lifecycle? And I'm like, why? And he was like, I don't want to restart back off, so I will mark everything as a sidecar, and then like, this will help me to avoid a restart back off. And like, no, it's not working in this way. Like, and then we decided that no, sidecars will not exercise any special behavior that is not achievable otherwise, because it just road to misuse that we didn't want to go. And this is why not the reason we implemented sidecars the way we implemented it. It's not a special type, it's just a property. I'll get to it later. And then there are other misuses that you may think of. So think about them really hard, like how people can abuse or expect your API to work in differently than you intended it to work. And then when you go to API reviewers, you really need support from your SIG. So if you have reviewers and approvers from a SIG already on your site, please ask them to join you to talk to API reviewers, because they may be really helpful. And other way around, once you went through API review, have API reviewers on your site to go back to SIG and start implementing things faster. And now we get to implementation part. So very interesting things that we did in Sidecar KEP is we've been very intentional about how to split work into pre-factoring, into something that we do as a minimal as possible that can be merged, and then post improvements. So we've been very intentional about it. We went through, like we approved this plan with approvers, and we try to be really mindful on how much pre-factoring we do, especially around tests. In our cases, we introduced a new micro framework that we use to test scenarios, and we try to push all these test changes early. So main PR, that will be big. Like main PR for KEP is always big. So as much as you can make it smaller, you must. So yeah, that's typically a good structure for your work. Please try to follow that. And then whenever you implement something, make sure that you clearly separate something under feature flag and everything mainline. So one thing that approvers are looking for is they want to prove that your alpha feature will not break any mainline code. So if you can glance through the code and clearly understand that, yes, definitely your feature gate protecting all the changes that are made. So if something is wrong with a feature, people just disable a feature gate and everything works as expected. If approvers can see it very clearly, they approve it faster. If they cannot see it clearly, then you'll get a struggle of back and forth trying to understand the code very well. And we failed a little bit on sidecars. I think we did well jobs here, but we may have done better. And we introduced a bug because of that as well. So yeah, try to separate your code as much as possible. And then when you implement it, you'll find bad things that you didn't expect. So make sure that you are flexible and you can shave off some features that you really can postpone for later, and be ready to implement more, because sometimes you'll find some edge cases that you didn't thought about, so you need to allow some time and flexibility on your side to catch up on those. It's also important to try to find as many companions as possible. Typically, people you're working with, especially if they're in different time zones, it's make first experiences fun, and then second, it's way more efficient. Then you can share some branch, as we did, and whenever code review came, we reacted on code review comments really quickly, because there are multiple of us editing the same branch. Make sure you're making backups, because if you're only one working on a branch, typically it's fine, but if there are many people working, it's much harder. And then, as always, if you implementing KEP, try to leave things better than you found them, and it will not only help you maintain this feature for once it's implemented, but it also will help improve your credibility, so next KEP will go much smoother. And then I have a couple minutes to go really quickly about through the sidecar KEP. I have a bigger talk with Todd right there on Thursday, so please join this talk. Here I will just go through the basics and some decisions we made. So motivation, we had a few use cases, and as I said, we dig very deep into every use case. So on Service Mesh we had a contact, on OpenTelemetry we have a contact, and like we try to understand what's happening and what exact scenarios we need to cover. So we wanted to have containers that will live through init containers lifecycle, and will live through regular containers lifecycle, and will be surviving all this, and will be restarted when it's crashed. Originally, we want to introduce new types of containers, but as I said, now we introduce new types that exhibit new properties that people may abuse. So instead of that, we realized that we're much better off, and for some other reasons, to introduce new restart policy feature field on init container. So now init container is not only something that can initialize and complete, but it can initialize and continue doing some work for your pod. And this installation and keeping a state up to date will be till the end of your other containers. So when all of your containers are terminated, your sidecar will also be terminated. And in terms of development process, as I said, we found a set of companions, and we held regular meetings. Regular meetings really helped keep pace of work and make sure that we are not forgetting things. And as I said, we split implementation into stages. We did a lot of pre-factoring, and our main PR wasn't huge. It was big, but not huge. And then we had a lot of after work that we're still catching up, but this after work is less important, and it's less important features. And then in terms of status, we get into KEP approved in 127, but as I said, never expect fast results. In 127, we wasn't able to merge because of other KEP was merged. So at the same time, we didn't want to merge two major KEPs in one release. So we waited another release just because another KEP was already in. And then alpha in 128, we immediately found a bug that we fixed. And then in 129, we did reasonably minor change because like we scoped it very well with termination, and now we in beta in 129. We know we still have a long way to GA, but I think we achieved a lot by getting to beta that fast. And it looks fast on the paper, but if you realize that Sidecar is one of the oldest KEPs documented, it's a very long way, and I think this presentation might have helped us in the past to go faster through this cycle. And then I wanted to make sure that you realize the scope of it. Like when we started working group, like all these people joined at different times, and many of them helped with advice and reviews. And then there were 4 main contributors, which I want to personally thank each of them. Gunjan is not here, but everybody else are here. So thank you.